Just thank you so much for your presentation. I love this step-by-step guide to the different tools we've had today. So it's really
Thank you.
easy.
There's so
Really,
much to say. That's the thing. But yeah, I really enjoyed watching the chat while the video was playing, and I tried my best to answer everyone's questions. But what I've tried to show is some ideas which are not gimmicky, which are pedagogically purposeful. But I would love to encourage more people to ask questions and all the rest of it. And that's the important part now for us to then discuss what would work in your own classroom and etc. Anyway, over to you, Hedy.
exactly. So thank you so much. So I just love this because even if you're not an expert, you have an idea, and it's not so frightening anymore to put all these into practice. Um, so please, if you have any questions, share them with us. Otherwise, I'm going to bombard you with my questions. And to start with, Joe, like, do you suggest using these virtual reality activities in online lessons only, or face-to-face ones as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think they can work in both contexts. I think that if you're in, let's say, a remote teaching context whereby everyone's at home, or in a hybrid context, then all you have to do essentially is share your screen and do a whole class activity whereby you're asking questions, you're visiting different places. I think that would work really, really nicely in different contexts. You could do that remotely, or you could do that in a face-to-face classroom. I think that if you were encouraging the students to do this autonomously, unless they're very good at autonomous learning, they could easily be distracted, I think, and to focus more on the ability to travel here, there, and everywhere, and not actually focus on the language work, which is, of course, what this is all about. So I think if it was me, I think I would probably run it as a teacher directed session, as a way of eliciting different answers out of the students based on what they could see live in the different places we were going to. I think that's the way that you could do that. Otherwise, you'd have to sort of maybe create quite open-ended questions on so what can you see here, or tell me what the weather's like, or if you notice anybody here, what, how are they feeling, what, it's more difficult if you're going to use that sort of random nature that I have in lots of these different ideas. I suppose with the Google Earth Voyager, then you could say, okay, so I want you to look at this particular voyage, and then I'm going to ask you specific questions around that. That would be easy to handle for students to do independently. But I think for me, the buzz of doing this and having presented about this a few times in different sessions, what people seem to really like is that random nature, the fact that you literally don't know where you're going sometimes, and then and that capturing the imagination, to me, that's one great thing about VR for sure.
Exactly. And it's good that first you would model these activities, and if the students are old enough, mature enough, they can use these activities in pairs as well, or in small groups. So not necessarily just as a whole class activity.
Definitely. I mean, I think in relation to, say, the Google Earth projects, I know I didn't actually show the video because it's about a 45-minute, an hour long video. But as part of that, I think the Google Earth project section, which Jimena talks about, is only about 15-20 minutes long. It's on my YouTube channel, so it's very easy to find. Um, and within that, she is demonstrating how you use the Google Earth projects option on the left-hand side of Google Earth. So whenever you go to a place, you can click on the Add to Project option. So very similar to the Google My Maps that I went through sort of step by step. You can then put your different pins in different places, add your description, and then if you wanted to, you could use a third-party tool like Screencastify, etc., to then record your screen. So that could be a task that you set independently for sure, as long as you say, Hedy, the students were mature enough to be able to cope with doing that. But that would definitely be, I think, a way of setting this as an independent task. And I love the way in which you can use the Google Street View, as I was trying to do with the examples that we saw, of being able to actually go down to Street View level and then actually see the place that you're in, and that becomes so much more immersive in that way, I think.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so these tools, especially where students can present a journey, for example. So are these tools that the ones that you mentioned in the webinar used best individually by students, or can they be used in collaboration, like students working in pairs or in smaller groups, bigger groups?
Yeah. So the tools I mentioned, for example, the Google My Maps, the Google Earth projects, you can, as with any Google tools, you can collaborate together. So you could, for example, create a collaborative My Map, whereby you're describing different areas within a text or a story. You could choose to describe different areas. That would be fine. Or Google Earth projects, you could create a collaborative project. I've not done that personally, but that is possible to do that. And then if you wanted to record your screen, you'd have to record those individually. You wouldn't be able to do that collaboratively, but you could certainly create the content collaboratively and then choose what to do with it afterwards. So yeah, that is definitely possible. That's one of the beautiful things around Google tools, the way you can create collaborative context. In relation to Google Arts and Culture, I don't think that would be possible. You'd have to, as the teacher, you'd have to set a task based on, let's say, a particular museum, or you could do some sort of virtual treasure hunt, I suppose, actually thinking off the top of my head, in relation to, let's say, different pictures by Van Gogh. You could then ask the students to go to a particular picture and then get them to identify or answer different clues for other pictures on the same floor. That might be a lot of fun, I think. But certainly with Google My Maps and Google Earth projects, yes, they can be done collaboratively, and then that's when that just releases other possibilities and the value of collaborating together on these sorts of projects.
Yeah, what came to my mind is getting from picture A to picture B, and so it's just asking for directions and giving directions. That could be great.
Yeah, that could be really nice. Yeah. So what you could do there is, if you had, let's say, if you were in Zoom, you could then record the screen in Zoom and have two of the students live with their webcams having a dialogue with each other and then moving from place to place. That's a really good idea, Hedy. I hadn't thought of doing that. That's a really nice idea. Yeah, that's great. So it's more collaborative in that way. I was thinking of just like each individual recording the screen, but of course, yes, you could do it that way. You could have one student recording the screen and then the other student giving directions, and then the second student then going through and clicking onto the next pin in the project. Yeah, that'd be great. Fantastic.
So I don't feel completely hopeless.
No, not at all. No, it's great. Well, that's what this is all about. It's all about sharing ideas, and that's why I said right at the beginning of the presentation, I used the word exploring deliberately, because I'm still playing around with these sorts of different ideas myself, and that's why I think these sorts of environments where we can have professional pedagogical discussions around what works, what doesn't work, is so valuable. Yeah, absolutely. So we're all in it together. That's what it's all about, particularly during the pandemic. But I think prior to that as well, of course. But particularly during the pandemic, it's absolutely fine to say that you don't know something, and I do that myself. There's no harm in that at all. That's brilliant.
And one of the hot topics is usually bridging the gap between the classroom and real life, and so how to bring real life into the classroom. And these tools are just amazing. I just came to read that, oh my god, like save trees, no more postcards. we don't need them, because or preparing for presentations that you just demonstrated to us. For instance, like I used to go to the library when I was a kid and spend I don't know how many afternoons there, collecting information, data, putting the presentation together. Now we really don't need that. You just need a laptop or computer and Wi-Fi, and it's there. And
absolutely, and I think that's a really important point as well, to be overwhelmed by some of these ideas that I'm showing here, but to think about the ideas that you normally do in the classroom. Let's say writing a postcard or what have you, but just maybe try out a VR version of that, or going on a voyage whereby you're essentially doing the same thing, but you're just using different interactive tools in order to bring that sort of content to life. And I'm sure the students would really appreciate the efforts that you would go to do that, for sure. Yeah, that's great. Love the honesty. It's great.
And I know that you know other virtual field trip websites as well. Like, could you share some more tips?
Absolutely, absolutely. So what I'll do is I will
what they can be used for.
Yeah. So what I'll do now is I will just give me a second. I'm just going to put my what's on my second screen at the moment onto my first screen, so that you'll be able to see everything. Let me just give me 2 seconds. There we are. And then I will then go to here, and then there we are. And I will just go back to Zoom. That's the beauty of doing things live. That's it. And I'll just move the chat windows away. Lovely. And now I'll be able to share my screen if I've got the admin rights to do that. Yeah, I have. That's good. And I now click there, and you should now. There we are. You can now see my screen. Brilliant. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a couple of other VR websites that you can also use. If you want to ask me questions while I'm doing this, that's not a problem at all. So this one is called AirPano, and essentially it is a directory of 360 photos and 360 videos. So let me click on this link for you right now and give you a flavour of how it works. So this is Mont Saint-Michel, which, as I mentioned with the Google My Maps idea, we would go to visit every time we would go to France as part of the French trip when I was teaching. And it looks like this. It should be loading up right now. Let me just refresh the page. That's the beautiful thing about doing things live. You never know if the page is going to work or not. If it doesn't work, I can always try a different place. But what we should be seeing in a second is a 360 view. Let me just search here. If I put in Mont Saint-Michel, there we are, and do a quick search. Here we are. So I've just put that in. Okay, for some reason the Mont Saint-Michel one's not coming up, but that doesn't matter. So you can see here I've put in a search, and I'm getting lots of different places which are now coming up. So for example, if I click on here, the Abbey of Montserrat, Spain, like this, and I get rid of that there, and here we are. Right, this is what I was expecting to happen. So as you can see here, I can start moving around the picture. So similar to the ThingLink idea, the 360 photo in ThingLink, you've got the music as well, which you can mute if you find that annoying. There we are, just mute the music. But again, you can rely on these 360 images to be here. They're not suddenly going to disappear. So you could do a whole activity around, describing the local area, what can you see, and so on and so forth. And then if I hover here, you can see that there are different views. So if I click on here, for example, this is looking at the Abbey from a different angle. Or if I click here, this is looking at the inside of the Abbey, I think. And again, so similar sort of idea. You could ask these people what they're talking about, what they're thinking. You could then click here near the Abbey Tower. So in other words, you can sort of jump around and get different views of famous places. So that could be a way in which you could then design a set of questions, either to be done individually, like a sort of a scavenger hunt maybe, based on the 360 images, or you could do it as a whole class activity. If I click on the 360 video, you can see there are these. There's a really good. There we are. Sharks feeding in the Bahamas. There we are. So here, these are all resources which are on the site. You can't upload your own, but here we are, feeding sharks. So this is a 360 video. Can you see? So I'm able to move around the video.
The shark feeding is a form of ecotourism.
And I can mute the audio if I don't want that to be playing. And I could again do lots of activities or ask questions around the 360 video. So that's how that works. I see we've got a question. Just a question. Do you have to log in, or are these websites accessible without any Google account or something similar? Yeah, so the websites I'm showing right now, you just need to go to the website. You just need the link. So there we are. So that's that one. If I now close that window and I go on to the next page, this one, oh, that's the Google Earth project, which I talked about already. That's fine. Let's go on to the next one, and that's that one. Oh, sorry. Let me. Oh, I know what's happened. It's because I've muted the. I've hidden the page. If I just click Stop Presenting and I go to here, and I right click that, and if I just click on it, I just have to remember that I've hidden these. That's right. Okay, so we'll just stick it with this view. So this is Windows Swap, which is a lovely VR website, completely free to use. And you see here it says open a new window somewhere in the world. So if I click here, it will literally take me to a window anywhere in the world. It so happens I'm in Finland. Can you see top right? It says where you are. And what the different people who have taken part in this website have done is they've just recorded their window with a video camera for about 10 minutes, I think, and you're just watching what they would be seeing from their window in Finland. This was done at the start of the pandemic. So again, you could say, okay, so what's the weather like? What can we see in front of us? Etc. etc. Then all you have to do is you just hover at the bottom. Can you see? And it says open a new window somewhere in the world. So then you go somewhere else. So now we're going to we're still in Finland apparently, but it's not the same weather. You could say, okay, so is it snowing now? No, it's not snowing. It's sunny. I can see 3 cars and so on, or 5 cars and so on and so forth. There's a man walking in front. Where's he going? How's he feeling? What's he thinking about? Let's go somewhere else. So it's not all about Finland. There we are. Now we're in the USA. Okay, so now we could say, okay, so what can we see in front of us? We can see a sofa. We can see some lights. What time of day is it compared to the other place we were in? There's a guitar on the right-hand side there. So obviously this person likes music and so on and so forth. Then we click somewhere else. Now, it's Finland again. This is hilarious. Right, I just showed you it's not always about Finland. Right, Sweden. Now we're going to Sweden. There, perfect. So what can we see? We can see the car turning around the corner. We can see a bicycle. We can see a football pitch. That's lovely. Let's go somewhere else. So now we're in Toronto, Canada. So I'll just click on a few of these just to give you a flavour. It's back in Sweden. Lovely little dog there. South Korea. Finland again. I've never known it to be in Finland so much. Montreal. So you get the idea. I think that this would be really, really engaging. Yeah. So there we are. Let me just close that for you now, and I will show you the next one. So the next one is here. This is called Drive and Listen. Okay, so this one is again a very immersive website, I think. So if I there we are. So the way this works is I've got the street noise turned off, but basically Drive and Listen, what it allows you to do is it allows you to visit different places as if you were in a taxi or in a car. So in the moment we're in Barcelona, Spain, and you can choose the car speed. So at the moment it's on normal speed, but you can make it go more quickly. You can also play the local radio from that particular place. And if I click on the street noise, I can listen to the street noise like now. Right now, let's have a listen. Well, that's the street noise, which I can then mute as well if I don't want that to happen. But that could be cool as well. There we are. And then I could go somewhere else. So let's go to Beijing. So this is not a random one. I'm choosing where I'm going. But no, I don't know what's going to happen when I click on Beijing. So now I'm in Beijing. So again, you could say, okay, so what can we see? What's happening? Look at the architecture compared to the previous place. Let's go to Buenos Aires. Oh, so now it's playing the radio. So I can pause that. So again, now we're in Buenos Aires. We can have the street noise. So because it's constantly moving, I think you'd have to, you'd have to ask questions there and then, and the students would just have to react there and then. But a great immersive way, I think, of feeling as if you're in that particular city driving around. So that's Drive and Listen anyway. The next one is called City Walks. Similar idea. Let me just Let me just. Oh, sorry. Let's go back a sec. City walks. There we are. Right. City walks. Okay, so this one, again, you can choose where you go. You can choose the daytime or the nighttime, which is quite fun. So this is obviously day. I can now. Let's go to Athens in Greece. Okay, so I'm in Athens in Greece. You get this little quick fact as well, which is quite cool on the bottom left there. So I'm in Athens, and I can change it to nighttime. There we are. So again, from a cultural point of view, really, really interesting to ask all the different things that we can see. Let's have the city sounds. That's the city sounds again, as we had before. Let's go somewhere else. Let's go to Berlin in Germany, and let's go for the daytime. Oh, there we are. Let's go for the daytime. So the quick facts could also be really useful as well. So there we are. So that's how that one works. And then the next one is this one. This is the last one in this particular presentation. If I now click City Guesser, this is a great one from the point of view of a whole class activity. Although you can do this obviously individually as well. I really love this. This is, let's choose where we're going to go. Let's go to Europe, I think. We'll click here. So this is literally anywhere in Europe. I'll just mute that. There we are. This is literally anywhere in Europe. There's a bit of a clue right in front of us, but anyway. And you have to then say where you think we might be. Okay, so can you see here at the bottom it says start guessing. Now I think we may be in Paris. I don't know why I'm thinking that, but we may be in Paris because it looks like that's the Eiffel Tower. So I'm going to click start guessing. And then I'm going to put a pin here. Like that. Can you see what I've done? And then you click guess. And it tells me I'm only 13 miles out. So then what you do, which is great, that's a really good result. So now if I click next, let's try again. I think the next one won't be so easy. Feel free to write in the chat where you think we are. So it's somewhere in Europe. It's going to be a city in Europe. This is not a 360 photo. I can't scroll through. Any ideas? So it says Maison Antoine, Austria. So you think it might be Austria? Any other guesses? So you're looking for little clues. So this is really good for critical thinking, isn't it? You're looking for clues of identifying where we are. So it's obviously like a big square somewhere. You've got the architecture there. So, okay, Sylvia thinks it's Switzerland or Austria. Let's have a guess because we're running out of time a little bit. Let's have a guess. So let's try Austria, okay? And click guess. And we are 530 miles out. It's in fact Brussels. Oh. But you get the idea. But you know, if you're having a cup of coffee and you've got half an hour, this is a great way of spending half an hour just playing against yourself and seeing how much you know of. In this case, it's Europe, or you could choose your own country. It doesn't have every single country, but it has lots of the main ones. It has capital cities as well, if I remember correctly. And that's it. That's how it works. So there we are. So I'll just close that for you now. And I'll stop sharing my screen. There we are.
Oh my God, it's amazing. Like, they can save you time. Because, for instance, when I teach students the present continuous or past continuous, what I do is we go out for a short walk and then observe what's happening at the moment. And then we go back to the classroom and I ask them, okay, so do you remember when we were out, what was happening? You know, so it's like it saves you time. Also health and safety, you do, like if you have younger children, you know, it's always a hassle to take them out of school. And also the third thing that comes to me, which is huge, is really going paper-free. Not for the whole course of the lesson, but at least part of it. So if you can have one or two activities where you do not need to use paper, but still the tasks remain meaningful, purposeful, it's amazing. I love it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's the key, isn't it? It's about using these resources in a way which is purposeful, and that's what I've tried to suggest a few ideas tonight. But I really appreciate any other comments. That's lovely, Hedy, what you've just said. Any other comments about thoughts on how you could use this, particularly in a languages context? But I think that the cultural idea is obvious, but as you say, practicing, for example, the present continuous, I think that's a really, really good idea. Practicing different tenses for sure, that's great. But it certainly has that wow factor. I could see in the chat that people were being wowed by the ability to be able to go to a whole variety of different places and then work out the clues on the screen, what you could see to identify where it was that we were. That was great fun. I'm sure that's the sort of thing that students would really like to do as well.
Exactly, and
let's see if we've got any more questions. I see Sylvia's asked the question, why is the website called Drive and Listen? So the idea is that normally you would listen to the local radio on all the different places you go to. You can actually listen live to the local radio while you're driving about. That's why it's called Drive and Listen, basically.
Exactly. And so as we have access to more and more tools that add variety, bring in creativity to our lessons, and even stimulate real life at times, depending on what we use, are there any potential pitfalls that teachers need to be aware of so they can ensure that the lesson is really effective and meaningful, so that we do not just start playing?
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely key. I think depending on what you're trying to do with them, as with any task that you create, always think carefully about what is it that you're trying to get the students to achieve. What language are you trying to get them to practice? I think that, say, if you were to set a Google Earth project for them all to do, what structures do you want them to use? What guidance are you going to give them? Are you going to give them like an aide-memoire or like a template to work with, or model an example? I think if it was me, I would model an example first to make sure they know what it is that they're doing. Give them a time limit, maybe, if it's a class activity, or if you think that potentially they could spend a lot of time playing around at home, set it as a homework task so that you know what it is that you want to see as the outcome. So if they want to have a play around, they can do that in their own time, as long as they produce the outcome that they need to produce. So I think it depends on the nature of the task, on how you know the students, and always focusing on the pedagogy and not on the potential of it being a gimmick. I think that's really, really important. So obviously everyone here, you know your students, you know what they'll like. I'm sure when they first see these websites, I'm sure they'll find them engaging. It's whether that engagement can be maintained over a period of time, and that will all be about how you make the task purposeful, I think. So that's really down to everyone here, thinking about how they can put this into practice. But hopefully this is giving you the inspiration of how you can, or raising awareness of the sites that are out there that you could use. And I'd love to know, in the future, of how people have got on with these different websites, because I'm still exploring them myself. But I think they're the sorts of websites which could add a lot of value, particularly during the pandemic when it is so difficult now to travel still.
Antonella has an amazing question. How can we keep the lesson going if tech fails, and as homework with a personal touch?
Yeah, so that's a tricky question. I mean, obviously, if the internet goes down, then these websites won't work. You can't have an offline version of a Google Earth project, so it would be dependent on needing an internet connection. That said, I don't think that these websites particularly demand a lot of bandwidth. I know that said, I know that we did a Tilt webinar that I mentioned, for example, with Jimenez. That was part of the Tilt webinar series. We did one with Michelle Worgan around using ThingLink 360 to make an interactive story, and she was saying that what she does is she doesn't get everybody using their own device. She has the students in little groups, so they're working together on, say, one device for, say, 4 students, because if the internet is not particularly, if there's not a lot of bandwidth in the location that you're in, because ThingLink can use quite a lot of bandwidth, that can be an issue. So that's something which you would have to bear in mind. But if the internet goes, then obviously you wouldn't be able to do this activity. You could maybe get the students to plan what they need to do once the internet comes back. But all these ideas would require internet, but some websites might require more bandwidth than you have available, in which case I would follow the lead of what I suggested of maybe limiting the number of students using the website to a smaller number so that it would then work. But with these sorts of questions, it's all about context, and it's all about the connectivity you have in your own context, really. So you'd have to then adapt accordingly, I think. And in relation to the personal touch, I think the great thing about these tools, certainly particularly in relation to, say, Google Earth projects or the Google Mind Maps that I mentioned, it can be a lovely way of telling a personal story, which could bring, the text to life. If you're talking about your ideal holiday or an awful weekend that you've had, for example, and then include different cool pictures or different places in Google Earth, I'm sure that would be a way of absolutely personalizing the learning. And I think technology can lend itself really well to that. And I think those sorts of examples are great for that. Whereas with, the Google Earth Voyages, that's when someone else has made the content for you. So you can obviously create questions around that, but it's not the same as the whole idea around creating your own content, getting ownership of your own work, and so on and so forth, which is one of the lovely things about promoting creativity with these sorts of digital tools, I think.
And regarding, you said that we need to pay attention to the fact that we do not overuse certain things, because
yeah, of course, yeah. As with anything which is new, it can be very interesting and cool, but as long as you focus always on the pedagogy and what you're actually trying to do with the tool, if you just have it as the wow factor over a period of time, then that motivation, I think, will not necessarily be maintained in the same way compared to if you're either using it more sparingly or you're using it when you're always focusing on the task that you're trying to achieve with the students. Because as with anything, there might be an initial rush about, oh, this is really cool, but you've always got to think about the task and the students and what you're actually trying to achieve with it. So I'm not saying you couldn't use virtual reality on a regular basis, but you certainly wouldn't want to use it for a whole lesson. You'd want to use it at moments in a lesson or as a homework activity, rather than let's say being immersed for the whole lesson. I think that it would be too demanding to do that. So I mean, that actual question came up with Michelle with the Tilt webinar I mentioned, and she would say she would use, say, a third of the lesson maybe going through a 360 story with ThingLink, whereby either she would have it as a whole class activity with her asking the questions, or the students would work in groups, so they wouldn't use it for the whole lesson. But again, everyone here, your students, you'd have to work out what would work. But certainly that can be, using technology can be motivating, but if that's all it is, then that's not enough, and that motivation will fade after a while. That's certainly from my experience, and I know other people as well feel exactly the same.
Exactly. So it's like eating your favorite cake.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I can remember a fairy story when I was growing up about the king that would only eat mince pies, and he loved mince pies. They were his favorite food. So he wished that he would only be able to eat mince pies. And of course, after a few days, he was absolutely sick of mince pies. He didn't want to eat another mince pie, but that's all he was allowed to eat. And then he came to his senses. That the moral of the story was he came to his senses, and he realised actually that other foods also taste very nice. It's not all about the mince pies, and that's exactly what this is all about. So you can use it as a motivation, but that's not if that's all it is, then that will fall down after a time, I think, for sure.
So Joe, thank you so much for your presentation and answering our questions. I've learned a lot myself. I hope others as well. And I really enjoyed it. So I can always learn so much from you.
Well, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. And of course, I'd love to come back and do another masterclass or two or three or what have you, for sure. But I think that virtual reality is something which I think is exciting and has a lot of potential. But I think we're still at the stage of working out the things that work and the things that maybe don't work. So I think that these sorts of tools, I think, definitely do have a place and can be useful. I think the idea of maybe having 30 students all wearing VR headsets all at the same time and not actually communicating with each other, to me, that's it feels more like a gimmick and not really what should be happening in a languages classroom. In the sense that the students should be communicating, etc., with each other rather than all being immersed in their own little world. I think having the screen shared remotely or in a hybrid context or on a whiteboard and everybody being immersed together, to me that's the power of using VR rather than everyone being in their own individual worlds. Personally, I mean, obviously one could do that at home, but I think in a learning context I would go for autonomous learning in the ways that I've talked about, but maybe using VR mainly for whole class teaching and teacher-led questioning and those sorts of things. But I'm open to advice on that, and any experience. As I've said, I would very much welcome it to hear how people are using these different tools. It'd be cool.
Thank you so much. I got ideas that I can use in my exam classes as well. So.
Awesome. That's what it's all about. That's what the masterclasses are all about. It's all about trying the ideas out, feeding back, and that's lovely. That's great to hear.